Do you guys believe in spirits? I never did. I was always a skeptic, until I saw one for myself that changed my whole perspective of spirits and the paranormal. This happened to me years ago at my workplace, the hospital. My job title is surgical technician. I'm the person who passes the surgical tools to the surgeon, and I also help get the room ready for operations. You have to understand that operations can happen at any time 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We will never know when there is an unexpected operation that needs to happen right away unless the patient has a scheduled appointment. On this one particular day, I was asked to go prep an operation room for a scheduled hysterectomy. This patient has uterine cancer, so her doctors plan to take out her uterus to stop the cancer from spreading. I got to work early so I can have enough time to find parking. Parking at the hospital is a pain in the butt because there's always people going in and out of the hospital at all times. So, it's always a good idea to come at least 30 minutes earlier. After clocking in, I got right to work. I cleaned, sanitized the whole room, and got all the right equipment ready. After I was done, I shut off all the lights and locked the door. As I turned to the left to go to my workstation, I saw an old fragile patient in a hospital gown just standing in the hallway. He looks like he's 4'11" and weighs about 100 pounds only. Just so you all know, the operation hallway is long and quiet and sometimes dark because the lights go off when there's no motion detected. It's to save electricity. Anyways, I saw the little old man just stand there. I thought, how he got down here, and why is he even down here, especially in his condition. I walked over to him and asked, "Sir, how did you get down here? Do you need help?" He turns his head and looks me straight into my eyes. His eyes were wide open, and his pupils were bloodshot. He said to me, "I want to go home." I grabbed his shoulders and said, "Let's get you to your room before you can go home, okay?" He still just stared at me. I told him to stay put while I go find a wheelchair and we'll figure out where his room was. As I run to grab a wheelchair from nearby and quickly came back, the old man disappeared. I thought, what the hell? He was just right here. I only left for a good minute to get the wheelchair. How can an old tiny man walk or run away that quick? I was so puzzled at the situation. I went back into the operating room and used the phone to call the hospital service line. I told them that I found an old man down in the operation hallway, and could they check if any part of the hospital is missing a patient. The nurse on the phone said she doesn't think so because if there was a missing patient somewhere in the hospital, she would have gotten a report about who the patient was. This got me even more confused, and I know what I saw. After we hung up, I slowly got out of my operation room and started to walk in the hallway. As I walked, one of the other operation room doors opened and they wheeled out a patient, but the whole body was covered in a white sheet. When a body is covered in a white sheet, that means the patient has passed. Surprisingly, one of my colleagues was a surgical tech that was still in the room that they wheeled out the deceased patient. I went in the room and asked her what happened to the patient. Yes, we aren't supposed to tell any information about any patients that come into the hospital, but it was just the two of us. She told me, he was an 85-year-old man. He has a heart condition, and they were operating on his heart, but sadly his body was too weak to withstand the operation, so he passed on the operating table. As she was telling me, I got curious and asked her, was the old guy about 4'11" and weighs about 100 pounds? She goes, yes. How did you know? I didn't want to scare her, so I just said I saw them wheeling him out and thought maybe that was his age. I quickly left the room and went to my locker. I sat on the floor thinking, what if the old man that I saw in the hallway was the spirit of the old guy who passed away in the operation room? Now that I have pieced the puzzle together, it gave me chills, and I got goosebumps all over my body just thinking about it. My name is Catherine. I am 21 years old. I'm the only child in my family. My parents have been married for 30 years. My parents are the most loving and caring people in the whole world. I can never give them up for anything. On this tragic day, I came home from school to find my mom lying on the floor. She was lying on the ground motionless. I was trying to get her up, but it looks like she's unable to move. Her limbs were like noodles, so I got my phone and called the ambulance. The EMTs got to our house within 5 minutes, and they took my mom to the hospital. My dad was at work, so he didn't know what's going on until I called him crying that mom went to the hospital. My dad rushed home and got me, and we both drove to the hospital as quickly as we possibly could. When we went to the hospital, turns out my mom had a minor stroke, and they put her in the ICU. As my dad and I waited in the waiting area, one of the nurses came and told us that my mom was okay, but she was still sleeping, and she will be staying at the hospital for a couple days. I asked if I could spend the night with my mom. The nurse said yes, and that they do allow one visitor to stay with the patient. Since my dad works in the morning, I told him I will stay and watch over mom while dad goes home and rest for work tomorrow. My dad kissed my forehead and said he will come visit us tomorrow after work. That night, I stayed right by my mom's side as she was not awake yet. It was dark, so I laid on the couch and closed my eyes. Right when I closed my eyes, I heard a quiet knock on the door, and I got up quick thinking it was a nurse coming to check my mom's vitals. I said, "Come in." The door slowly opens. I can see under those huge curtains at the door were two small little feet walking inside our room. As the curtains opened, to my surprise, it was a little girl in a color hospital gown. She said,
"Sorry to bother, but I can't sleep, so can I come stay with you?"
I thought it's so late why this little patient is roaming the halls and just randomly coming into a stranger's room. I just said sure, we can chat for a little bit. She then walks over and sits right next to me on the couch. I asked her what's her name and why is she here. She said her name is Millie and she's been in the ICU area for a while now. She didn't tell me why she got admitted, but I didn't ask any further because she is still very young and probably doesn't even know why she's here. I then asked for her age. She said she just turned 7, her birthday just passed not too long ago. After I got to know her for a little bit, she got up and said she could hear the nurses coming, so she was going to go back to her room. She got up fast and dashed out the door. Then 10 seconds later, the nurse knocked on the door. On to the next day. My mom finally woke up. I cannot describe how happy I was to see her awake and smiling at me. The doctors came in to check on her and took some blood samples to get tested. The doctor also said that they want my mom to continue to stay for another 2 more nights to make sure she's okay to go home. As night approached, my dad brought over dinner for us since hospital food isn't the best. After dinner, my dad kissed us goodnight and he left home. It was just me and my mom again. My mom was still very weak, so right after my dad left, she fell asleep. I was still up doing my online homework for school. Then all of a sudden, I heard small knocking on the door again. I can already tell that the knocking was not a nurse, and it's probably Millie again, because her knocks are so soft you can barely hear them. I said, "Come in," and sure enough it was Millie. She came over and sat by me on the couch. She looked at me and then looked at my mother. She smiled and said,
"Your mom, she will be okay."
I looked at her and asked her, "How do you know?" Millie giggled and said,
"I just do."
I then asked Millie, "When are you going home, Millie?" She looked sad and replied,
"I won't be going home."
After she said that, it got me really sad because Millie was a sweet little girl and I want her to go home so she can continue to live her young little life. After she said that, she got off the couch and said,
"Thank you for being my friend. I won't be seeing you anymore. Bye."
After she said that, she walked towards the door. I try stopping her to ask why she said that, but she dashed out the door so quick, I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. Tomorrow morning, the doctor came in the room and gave my mom the good news that she might be able to leave home by tonight. All her test results came back great, and there's nothing more to be concerned. As the doctor said that, I thought about what Millie said, that my mom was going to be okay. It got me thinking, what about Millie? I hope she's okay too. I then decided to go for a walk outside of the ICU area just to get some exercise in. As I got out of my mom's room, I heard crying 2 doors down. Got me curious, why is there so much crying? So, I walked down that direction to see if I can see anything. As I got close, the door was slightly open and the curtains were pulled back. So, curious me peeked to see what the commotion was about. When I stuck my head in the door, I saw a family of 4 crying over the hospital bed. As I looked closely, on the bed was a little girl. To my surprise, it was Millie who was lying on the hospital bed motionless. I was so in shock, I fell to the ground. I couldn't stop thinking about her. No wonder, she said she won't be going home. This is probably what she was talking about, that she wasn't going to make it. Thinking about her made me cry, and I walked back to my mom's room feeling so empty inside. While in my mom's room, a nurse came to give my mom some warm water. I asked the nurse what happened to Millie. She asked me, "You know Millie too?" I said, "Yes, we are good friends." The nurse then told me that Millie has been in a coma for months now. Her parents got into a car accident, and Millie almost didn't make it. That's why the doctors put her in a coma, to see if that would help her regain her strength and wake up again. But sadly, little Millie passed away this morning. I started to cry, knowing that it wasn't really Millie who came to visit me those 2 nights. It must have been her little spirit who came to make friends with me. She must be so lonely being at this hospital all by herself. I wasn't scared about the situation, but more saddened that Millie had a whole life ahead of her, but sad it was cut short. I will always remember her face, and I still want to thank her for telling me that my mom will be okay. May you rest in peace, Millie. My 3 buddies and I love to vlog about old, abandoned places. We have a YouTube channel that we upload our traveling videos on. This one time, one of my guys found an abandoned hospital. He suggested that we should go check it out and make a YouTube video about it. Since not a lot of people know about it, there will be more views once we upload it. This abandoned hospital is in another state, so we quickly found plane tickets and flew there the next day. When we arrived, we thought maybe we should go ask around if anyone knew any information about the hospital, just so we have a little insight of what kind of hospital it was and how old is it. This hospital is in a little town. Population is less than 2,000, so I'm sure everyone there knows about this abandoned hospital. We started going on the streets to ask around. We came upon a mid-aged lady. We asked her if she knows anything about the abandoned hospital in their town. She just looked at us and said,
"Don't even think about going up there."
After she said that, she just walked away. We thought, what the heck is her problem? We went on asking a young boy who came out of the gas station to see if he knew anything about the hospital. He looked at us and told us that he and his friends went to that abandoned hospital before, and it's not a place where we should go. He gave us nothing more than that. Back at the motel that we were staying in, we decided that since no one wants to tell us anything, we will go and find out for ourselves. That night, we got all our camera gear ready and headed to the place. By the time we got there, it was about 10 at night. Luckily, the moon was shining bright, so we were able to see how the hospital looks like. From looking at the outside, it looks to be built around the early 1900s. The place has no windows or door. The place is so run down, those parts of the walls which was made from brick was cracked and falling apart. There were 3 levels to this building, but judging on how bad it's breaking apart, we agreed to stick together and just explore the first level only. Walking into the building, you just get this eerie feeling like there's people watching you, and feels like this place was still up and running. It was the weirdest feeling that we all got. Never had we felt this way before when entering any abandoned building. Right when we got into the middle of the first floor, our camera shut off. The batteries were all drained and our night lights shut off. It is now pitch black. We all got scared because this had never happened to us before. How can this be? We made sure everything was fully charged before we left the motel. As we looked around the place, I saw this white silhouette from a distance. It started out as a small floating ball hovering over the floor, then it slowly grew bigger and bigger. I told everyone to look at what I'm seeing, and they saw what I'm talking about. As the orb got bigger and bigger, it turned into a shape of a tall man. When that happened, I couldn't believe my eyes. I got so scared I almost soiled myself. We all just froze. We couldn't move our feet at all. Then suddenly, the figure flew super quick at us and went right through us and disappeared. We all started screaming like little girls and darted out of the building as fast as we could. We ran so fast, we didn't even see that we ran past our rental car. We had to stop and turn back. When we got to the motel, we turned on our cameras to see if we had captured anything, and shockingly it was just all static. If you enjoy my videos, you can help support me by liking and subscribing to my channel. See you in the next video. Take care.